Hey fellow tennis junkies, today we're going to be talking about how to hit a heavy and deep, consistent forehand. Hitting the consistent forehand is not always the easiest thing. Everyone can come all the way out here and hit the ball as hard as they possibly can, but today we're going to learn how to consistently get that ball to stay deep in the court while not going too overboard. First off, we're going to talk about the proper grip on how to hit this heavy, deep forehand. So instead of actually using these terms and talk about the bevels and make it harder on everyone, I'm just going to use what I personally like to use as my visual representation. So I always take the racket here, facing out, with the face of the racket flat. And I'm going to take my hand right here and line up this part between my thumb joint and my pointer finger right up here with the face of the racket. This is going to be your typical grip for this forehand. That are possible whenever you're hitting these typical ground strokes. Stance number one is going to be the closed stance. With this closed stance, if I'm going to be hitting the ball toward the camera right here, my feet are going to be pointed straight this direction, and I'm closed off to the rest of the court. My second option is the fully open stance. So from here, I'm going to stand fully open with my feet pointed toward the camera or toward my opponent. And for the third stance, and the one that I'm going to be using for this forehand, it's going to be the semi-open. For this one, you're going to kind of line up with the net pole in a way. So you want to kind of face right toward this net pole. Your outer foot is going to stay out here, while this inner foot is going to be more so dictating which direction you're going to be standing from. So this way you get the full advantage of keeping your body open up to the court so you can hit anywhere that you want. But this back foot is still being used as a stabilizer for whenever you go for those tougher shots down low. So now that we've got that grip that we want and we're standing in our semi-open stance, we're going to talk about the backswing. So on the backswing here, I personally like to use my non-dominant hand and stick it out to force a spacing between me and the ball. So you're going to get in that semi-open stance and kind of bend your knees just a little bit. And as you start to bring the racket back, I like to keep it up higher here, and you're basically going to create a loop as you hit this ball. So I like to stick my arm out almost as if I'm trying to catch the ball. This forces me to position that ball farther away from me, and I don't get caught doing this because we don't have T-Rex arms. So I'm going to come right here with this semi-open stance, arm outstretched, racket head is up high, and I'm going to start my backswing. So I'm going to go straight from here to my semi-open stance, arm out. I'm going to start creating that loop. As I'm coming through, I've already created my spacing. As I'm coming through, my non-dominant hand starts coming in to close and get out of the way so it doesn't become a problem later on in the swing. So as I get right here, I start to close. Here's my contact point. You can see it's far out in front of me. I'm able to look directly at it. So the ball is going to be making contact way out here. Not too close to your body, but out far. Your arm wants to be fully extended. So you're going to come all the way here, fully extended, start retracting that arm, and then you're going to finish nice and high. So now that we've got the proper grip, proper stance, the correct backswing and follow through, we're going to focus on actually trying to hit some hand feeds. So I'm going to go ahead and set myself up in that semi-open stance like we just talked about, with that proper grip, lining up the fatty part of my hand with the face of the racket. And now all I'm going to do is start out here with my weight all on my back foot, drop the ball, arm out, and follow through. See that again? Semi-open stance. I got all the weight back here on my back foot, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to push my weight straight through into the ball. From this point on, we want to make sure that we're always finishing up here over our shoulders. This is going to force some natural topspin, and you don't have to change anything. All you've got to do is make sure that that racket comes all the way up here. This is part of why I like to retract that hand, because then it doesn't get in the way of that follow through. Like this. we've just got two more things I want to talk about. Now that we know how to hit that forehand, let's talk about taking true advantage of it. So number one is we're going to focus on making sure that whenever we hit that ball, we're still brushing up on it, but we're going to hit through it. So we don't want this swing to come here and go straight up into the air. We would much rather come through the shot. That's why we're making that contact out front and all the way up high over our shoulder. The last thing is the leg drive. We want to take massive advantage of our legs here. So whenever we go to hit this ball, we're going to take this back foot, and rather than just sitting here and driving only forward, we're going to go up diagonally. This is going to force you to stand up into the shot and create massive topspin. That's that deep, heavy ball I was talking about in the very beginning. So it's going to look a lot like this. And as you can see, as I go to hit the ball, right before I make contact, I begin that leg drive coming up, and that's what creates that big spin. See it one last time. So one of my favorite things to always learn from is by watching the pros. And here I have a clip from the USTA tennis player, and I'm going to link this video down in the description. But this is from the 2013 Indian Wells Masters 1000. And these are some Fernando Verdasco forehands. And this is typically what I like to go off of also because he's left-handed. He's always one of my favorites to watch whenever looking at forehands. So here I'm going to go and put this playback speed just a little bit slower. I'm going to mute the video here. So we just got him here practicing with, I believe it's Tommy Haas. So I want to take some notes here on these forehands. You can see the load up of his back foot and then driving up diagonally into that ball and finishing up high. Here we have a beautiful shot right here. So we can see all of the weight is on this back foot. He's got that semi-open stance, so he's still able to hit anywhere on the court here. He's not restricted due to his stance. And as he's got this backswing going, that right arm is extended because he's left-handed. And remember, he's keeping all that weight on that back foot. I'm going to slow it down as much as I possibly can here. And we can see him start to stand up almost straight up into the air whenever he hits that ball. Now, while he did shank that one, ironically, you can see the amount of spin that is obtainable just by driving straight up with that leg. So here I think we have an approach shot, and this is a great showing of how to hit a perfect approach shot using this forehand method. So you can see here, even though he's still keeping his weight going forward, he still had a slight load up on this back foot here. Arm is still coming out outstretched, and it still retracts as he goes to hit. You can see here his arm is retracting, just as we had talked about. And he finishes as high as he can for the ball that he's trying to hit, and then he continues into the net. So watching professional players' forehands and backhands and their strokes can really be a great teaching tool and can really help you learn how to improve your game. Now we're going to put that forehand into practice. I'm going to show you some rallies that I have with my doubles partner Sean, and we're going to take a look at each of those steps of the forehand. Take a look at some rallies that I had with Sean. So we can see on this forehand, I got caught on my back foot here, but because of that diagonal drive, I know that I'm still able to hit an effective forehand off that shot. I'm going to slow it down because I know I got a few forehands coming up here. So here I got the split step. You can see my arm extends. It's already starting to retract. I've got that semi-open stance just like we saw Verdasco had. All that back weight is on my foot. All my weight is on my back foot, sorry. And I stood straight up into that shot and finished up high over my shoulder. See the exact same thing here again. And you can see I'm able to really manipulate the face of the racket on those balls that come a little bit lower. So if you ever get a ball that's coming kind of in this too low or too high, with this kind of forehand, you're really able to manipulate the face of that racket to be able to get the ball to either go lower or go higher depending on what you're needing. And again, I finished up high. Okay, so this next forehand here is a good example of being able to hit a recovery ball. So Sean hit an aggressive shot over here to my forehand side. And while I ended up facing this direction, I was able to actually use my body weight to go into this shot. I'll go ahead and slow it down and take a look at it one more time. So I was able to hit that high, heavy ball. You can see it's even forcing him to have to back up more than normal. And it forces a jumping backhand and causes an error on his part. So as you can see with this exact kind of forehand, you can really be diverse in the way that you attack it, whether the ball comes at you higher or lower. The general motion and the way that you use your back foot as a driving force for your topspin stays the exact same, but you can really manipulate the racket face depending on the situation that you're in. In summary, we talked about how to use that grip on the forehand where we line up that thumb joint with your pointer finger with the flat face of the racket. Second, we talked about using the semi-open stance so that we could take advantage of keeping our back foot as a stabilizer, but using our front foot as a way to open ourselves up to the court or close ourselves. Third, we talked about our contact point, making sure that we're making contact with the ball out in front of us. And fourth, we talked about finishing up high and over the shoulder to help us with creating more and more topspin. And fifth, we talked about that leg drive while looking at Fernando Verdasco and the way that he uses that back leg to really drive up diagonally into the air to create as much spin as possible. Those are the basics to hitting a simple forehand in tennis. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content.